So I'm back working on my R5. In a previous video, you saw this. I put this mock-up engine together and had it in and out of the car a couple of times. And if you remember, I couldn't get this mandrel out of the block. And the time has come where I actually need to take that out because I need to put a crankshaft in it to mock up some stuff for the flywheel end. And if there's anything you should know about R5s, is that nothing is standard with really anything that came in a production car, which should be common sense, but not to someone like me that's trying to do everything the easy way or on a budget. So I got a small block Ford mini starter, and you might be wondering why the crankshaft flange pattern is a standard 302 small block Ford. And I'd like to run just a standard 157 tooth Ford flywheel. And to do that, I need a Ford starter, which these were not really geared for. They were a Tilton starter that's actually no longer made and is really hard to come by. And rather than paying $500 or $600 for one of those and trying to get it, or well, it would just bolt up and work. But rather than do that, I would rather do it the hard way and modify a starter, a bell housing, and use a regular flywheel. And of course, if any NHRA tech officials are watching this, no bell housings, no SFI bell housings are going to be modified in this video without the proper black spray paint replaced. All right, mandrel's out. Here's what it looks like. Pretty heavy. My guess is probably the same weight as the crankshaft, just to simulate the inertial load, but without the throws. I don't know. I haven't weighed it, but for sale comes with a motor plate because I can't figure out how to get that stupid gear off. So we ended up just having to take the whole motor plate and everything out. One thing I did find interesting, these main caps, they're actually a little bit different than the ones I have. The ones I have a recessed hole here. And I think that's would allow them to actually seal this surface of the main cap to the oil pan so they could divide the crankcase bays and pull vacuum on each section individually. This one being a Spintron block, they're not pulling any vacuum on it, so it's they're just regular main caps without that recessed hole. Nice thing is I got an extra set of main caps now for whatever. And the moment of truth here will be in a second when we figure out that this block is hopefully the right main size for my junk crank over here. So I'm gonna pull that crank off and drop it in here and see if we've got a match. Good news is mains are the same size, it appears to be, so that's good. The rear main seal is not the same size. The crankshaft actually does not fit down into the housing bore there, and I think what that is the difference between a two-piece rear main and a one-piece rear main block. So there's this housing down here that's kind of cast in, and on a one-piece that's not there. The actual one-piece rear main seal slips over the back of this, so that housing can't be there. And then there's a housing that bolts on top of this, which is the same as that guy, but this one just has that housing cast into the block. So we're gonna have to fix that, and since this block is already down a cylinder, probably just gonna yank the crankshaft out of it and take a die grinder and clean all that extra material out of there so that this snout will drop in there so we can mock up our flywheel. So stay tuned. So this is how we're going to fix this. We're just going to cut on that black line that I drew out there. Should get us clearance we need to make this thing work. So let's get to it. And there it is, complete. Crankshaft's in, 2-piece rear main is out. So that is the fastest way to turn your R5 block from a 2-piece rear seal to a 1-piece or a no piece. But wise man once said, we're not going to the machine shop, we're going racing. So I flip this thing over, get it off the stand, mount a flywheel on it, and get my bell housing mocked up so we can see what our starter looks like. Okay, so recap on the starter. I ended up having to switch starters completely because the standard small block Ford mini starter is not right for even remotely close to right for what I'm trying to do with it. So I got a different Hitachi style small block Ford starter from Jags, and we made 3D printed mock-up piece with some bolt hole locations moved to match the actual starter location for the bell housing, and hopefully allow us to run a standard small block Ford flywheel. So I'm going to turn, this is the flange that comes with the starter. We're going to turn this into this, and hopefully all will be well. So that is how we're going to make this starter work. So stay tuned for how we mount it up to the block. And I forgot to explain why the regular small block Ford starter didn't work. The regular small block Ford starter versus a Hitachi style starter, the Hitachi style, the motor is actually behind the gear with the solenoid off to the side. The regular small block Ford starter, the reduction and the solenoid is down here behind the gear, with the motor being larger and offset up here, which didn't fit with the headers or the dry sump system, no matter which way I clocked it. So this is going to work a lot better for our purpose here in the type space that Dodge gave us for putting this starter. So good news, we have the block and the crankshaft, and I was able to actually mock this whole thing up on the block that's going in the car. And so I got the 3D printed mock-up piece here, and I printed it tight enough that starter is actually in the engaged position right now. It's out. And as you can see, fits perfectly. There's a small block Ford starter or flywheel in there. So I got that done and went ahead and made the final piece out of that other starter flange that came with it, and that fits just as well as the mock-up piece does. Got the block cleaned, got the crankshaft setting in it right now. Gonna be putting that in for good here in a little bit. But also had to adjust the pilot bearing and get the right depth set for the transmission that's coming. So block is here. We're gonna start assembling this engine now, so stay tuned for that.